So folks, we are very, very excited. The fabric aggregator that Hans-Jürgen just referred to is in the Facebook booth out there, so you can go check it out. The GPU appliances by ZT Systems that Mark Tremblay talked about for Microsoft are also out there. You can go check it out. As Mark Reddick talked about in his speech earlier, we have over 100 products in our marketplace and 100 more in the pipeline. So you can go out there and talk to the folks that are in the booths, see those 100 products that are available today, and possibly get a glimpse of those other 100 that are in our pipeline. So very excited to have our exhibitors out there. Please do go visit the booth. Next up, I'd like to introduce somebody very special. Bill Carter is OCP's Chief Technology Officer, our CTO. Now, CTO means different things according to Wikipedia. And in Bill's case, I could look at all of the definitions, and pretty much all of them apply to him. Concurrent training and operations, that's Bill. Configured to order, that's Bill. So we're pretty excited about everything that Bill's doing, and he's a respected subject matter expert. He's had 35 years of experience with Intel, and he brings that over to us at OCP. Please join me in welcoming Bill Carter, our Mr. Check This Out, CTO of OCP.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, it's great to be in Amsterdam. We started on this journey 2 years ago, and like John Laban pointed out, there was just a few people that we would talk to, and it's so enjoyable to see a full crowd here today. I'm going to spend the next 8 or 10 minutes and talk about what's in store for the rest of the day today as well as tomorrow. We start off in the afternoon with 9 different executive tracks. Just quickly cover some of those. By the way, all of this is available on your iPhone app, so you can find that information on the back of your badge. One of the executive tracks is from Inspur. They have several new open source products that they're planning to introduce. They'll cover those in their session. Samsung's going to give us a look ahead on what's going on the non-volatile memory roadmap, and we'll get a flavor on what's the technologies to come there. Facebook is actually going to present and talk about the journey of open sourcing, and that should be a fun topic to sit and listen to their journey and the individuals that are involved in it. And then we're also going to have a discussion from IHS Markit. They do some market surveys for us and help guide us as an organization. They're hosting a panel in one of their executive tracks and talking about that journey with some panelists. So again, you want to, as you start on that journey, maybe you can hear from the folks at Facebook and the IHS Markit panelists and listen to their journey. Microsoft is going to talk about the benefits of specialization using common FPGA technology. Mark mentioned that in his talk earlier, and so he'll go into more detail on that journey and the use of their hardware. And ZT Systems is a supplier of the Olympus system. They're going to talk about building cloud hardware solutions using the Olympus platform. IT Renew and WeWin will talk about new products that they have in the pipeline, and they're very supportive of this open sourcing movement and expect to see some interesting information, product information from there. And Hewlett-Packard is going to talk about autonomous driving. I think I'm going to attend that one in hopes that we can figure out how to quickly get autonomous driving involved in my wife's vehicle so she stops running into the garage door. We also have brought some adoption stories to this summit. We have 4 companies that are going to speak in a session this afternoon. ING Bank out of Poland is talking about how Open Compute and OCP hardware has helped them with their TCO challenges and reducing TCO costs. Booking.com is also on this open source journey, and they're going to talk about some of the challenges that they have come across and how they've solved those and help explore that open source journey and the use of OCP hardware. KPN Telecom is again going to talk about their use of open rack technology. And then we have a group from Nurum who's teamed up with Solaris and IT Renew, and they're a cloud service provider out of France, and they'll talk about their journey as well. So it should be a good session this afternoon. We also have, for those people that are new to open computing, they want to learn a little more about the organization, we have a special track where we're going to talk about what it's like to get involved in OCP, the various groups, and talk about how do you get involved personally. Archana Haylock's going to teach that. We call it our OCP Primer. We also have a pretty robust marketplace where our solution providers and people that build open hardware can advertise and share that information, all their design specs, design files, and product information on that marketplace. And so as a service that we provide to solution providers, and we have several in the audience today, we've added some security to that website. We've added some tools to allow them to service their customers better, and Rajiv's going to cover that. As Mark mentioned and Hans-Jürgen mentioned, we have a huge challenge ahead of us to solve the cooling challenges, cooling from GPUs, FPGAs, as well as the challenges in optics and the heat dissipation we expect from 400 gig optics. And so at our last summit in March, our global summit, we announced the creation of the Advanced Cooling Solutions Group. That group has had an initial kickoff this summer in the Bay Area, and we plan to have a session tomorrow. But they're very excited to get together. They have a long list of things that they want to work on, and so they're actually going to meet this afternoon at 1 o'clock and start that effort. So they're going to spend the afternoon together on day one. And we actually have a special guest, Octave Clave, CEO of OHV, is going to kick off that session. It turns out that OVH has actually installed over 300,000 servers using liquid-cooled technology. So he's a guest speaker in that session at 1 o'clock today. On day two, workshops. We try to have a workshop for all of our projects. So we'll have a server and storage project, network, rack, and power. We do have a security project, and because we just didn't have enough time for all the projects on day two, we're actually pulling the security project in, and so there's a presentation on today on the security, and specifically a presentation from Microsoft and the Cerebus security solution they're open sourcing. We have work going on in our management group. Again, the advanced cooling group that's meeting today will also have a session tomorrow afternoon, talk about various things. So we've kind of combined that with HPC. We have a pretty active telco work group, and there's actually a lot of products that are going to be discussed at the spec level, as well as some products that are kind of on the back end and going to market. So EdgeCore has a cell site gateway a specification that they're contributing. There's an aggregation router that's being contributed. Deutsche Telekom's been working on with some of the other European carriers and has come up with a GPON specification that meets their needs, and ideally that's socialized in these work groups and aligned with the supply base to build these open source products. So that'll be discussed. I think AT&T is even talking about their cell site gateway router specification as well. So again, a lot of things going on. There was mention earlier of an Open Edge subgroup that's being formed and being incubated. Mark mentioned that earlier. That'll again be discussed in the telco work group. And we also have a data center facilities group. I'll talk more about that in a second, and our open system firmware project. So pretty full day, about 60 different presentations tomorrow throughout the day. The server and storage groups are actually being combined into one. I think there was mention that Yahoo Japan had given a presentation at a summit last year. They're back again this year, and they're going to talk about their journey. About 25% of their facility has been switched over to OpenRack, and they're going to kind of give us an update. That's going to take place in that server and storage workshop. We also that team released a Mezzanine 3.0 specification, also referred to as a NIC 3.0 specification. It authored by a dozen companies. They spent the last year working on it. It basically takes PCI Gen 4 and electricals and puts a new package that's pluggable from the front of the system. So there's two different form factors. They'll go into disclosure on that spec that's been released. And then we have a variety of GPU boxes and storage boxes that have either come out or are coming out. I might say coming out, being contributed and open sourced. And so those will be covered in that joint session as well. And I think if you visit in the exhibition hall, you'll have a chance to see some of those products. Again, things that are either in the pipeline or things that were recently introduced. So it should be a good session. I mentioned data center facilities. We actually created a new program for companies that provide co-location services. And so the logo on the left, Colo Solution Provider, helps identify those companies that are part of this provider network. Now, as a provider, you operate facilities. We think that there are certain requirements that should be implemented in those facilities to really gain the efficiencies and implement the best practices, some of those efficiencies that are defined in our server and storage groups. And so that group has actually defined a checklist of best practices to drive that efficiency. And so facilities that meet that best practices guideline will actually get to receive this OCP Ready logo. And so that's being rolled out, and they'll talk in more depth about that in the data center group. Finally, on day 2, we also have a European focus track. Again, just more information available. So Mark Rennick mentioned this morning that we had IHS Markit conduct a survey on our behalf and look at what's important in Europe, and particularly around energy efficiency. And so those survey results are going to be shared by Liz Cruz and her crew in one of those sessions. We'll also hear from the London Internet Exchange. They've adopted open switchgear hardware, and they'll talk about that experiences and the savings. Also mentioned by one of our speakers, I think John Leban mentioned the challenges that EU policies are having and the effects that those policies may have on the data centers, particularly trying to drive efficiencies. We're very fortunate that most of the products that have been contributed in open source to OCP really meet those already today. So we've been able to put together a panel of folks that are involved in this EU policy setting, and they're going to describe some of those upcoming policies and be able to have a Q&A. So that's again, one of those sessions. We call it the European Focus Track. That's on day 2. And then the final one is the Research Institute of Sweden. We've been working with that organization this last year. They've installed some OpenRack V1 solutions, and they've recently installed or have received some latest version 2 systems. They're doing energy studies and comparing that. And again, that information will be today. I think tomorrow they're going to talk about what they're doing. But the goal is that we help the European community make good choices and try to solve some of the energy issues that we face. In the Global Summit in March, we announced partnerships, collaboration agreements that we have with a lot of the other open source organizations. And as Mark pointed out, we work hand in hand with the TIP organization. We also work hand in hand with Open Power. In fact, when we decided to have our summit here today, we coordinated with the Open Power folks, and their summit follows on Wednesday and Thursday this week. So feel free to encourage you to stick around and attend their summit. Back in March, we introduced some collaboration work we were doing with the Linux Foundation, and specifically the NFV group within Linux. And that collaboration is really based on, we want to offer open source hardware, and we want that hardware to be ideally optimized to run with, with their open source software. And so that work actually started probably a year ago. And we've been working with our solution providers, Cumulus being one of those. They're working with the OPNFV group, and we've installed basically a central office-like setup back in the Bay Area using open hardware. And so we're going to show a demo on some of that work, and this is work that really got kicked off literally 2 months ago. And I threw a challenge out to our team to see, hey, let's go ahead and contact some of our solution providers and see how quickly we can take open hardware that's ideally suited for a cell site or a central office, and let's see how fast we can install that. So again, this kicked off recently this summer, and we're going to get to see a demo today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Heather Kirksey. She's the VP of Ecosystems and Community within the Linux Foundation, focused on the networking projects under that foundation. So please welcome Heather.